Hi, Dr. Yass here. Most of the videos I present relate to people who are already having pain or dysfunction or a combination of the both. This is a video for those people who would like to prevent themselves from reaching the point that they have symptoms or dysfunction and then require some sort of intervention to try to resolve the situation. This relates to an understanding as to why most people, I'm talking the vast majority of the people, which include the 130 million Americans suffering from chronic pain, as well as the roughly 1 billion people worldwide suffering from chronic pain. This is an understanding as to why this happened and how to prevent it in the first place. So this is an attempt to provide people with a representation of why people have pain and what the three primary exercises are that I truly believe everybody universally, whether you have pain or don't have pain, should be doing to sustain functionality without developing symptoms. Maximizing your functionality, allowing you to do what you want when you want, and pretty much preventing you from ever developing symptoms. So this is going to simply describe the three primary muscles that need to be strengthened and the exercises needed to perform them. So number one, the most important muscle in the body that relates to functionality is the gluteus medius muscle, and that's kind of, if we're looking at the pelvis, we're looking right here. This is the muscle right here, this red muscle. You can see it sits on the side of the pelvis and attaches to the hip joint. It is responsible for keeping the pelvis level when performing activity. So if you're standing, walking, climbing, bending, twisting, anything you're doing, you need to have your pelvis level. The reason is because this is what allows the forces of gravity to run through the center line of the body. If this muscle is to strain on one side or the other, it's going to alter the attitude of your pelvis. So instead of it being level or horizontal, it's going to rise to one side or the other. What you can see is that's going to change the distance that a leg has to travel to the ground from one side to the other. So any time that you're going to have to be moving your legs, an excess force will be created on one side, the side where the pelvis is higher. That force has to be picked up by muscles, and that's going to lead to straining. In terms of the spine, if the pelvis is level to the ground, then your spine is perpendicular. But if you get a change in the pelvis being level, then the spine angle changes, and it's going to have to fight its way back to being above the pelvis, which means you're going to develop scoliosis. It also will pertain to how gravity is pushing through the head, the shoulders. So you could be leading to straining of the muscles that support the head or the shoulders, actually, strangely enough, because that pelvis isn't being maintained level. A level pelvis is the foundation of normal function and limiting the development of symptoms associated with function. So, the number one most important muscle to keep strong, to maintain function, optimal function without symptom, the gluteus medius muscle. The exercise to be performed is hip abduction, and this video couldn't be long enough for me to go into the nuance of it. But I can assure you that everybody who's putting a loop around their legs and walking the length of a gym, that's all wrong. It's not how you strengthen it. You're going outside the range of motion. You're stabilizing one leg with the other, so you're not putting all your energy into the moving of one leg, which causes the one muscle to work. You need to understand how to do isolated hip abduction correctly. This is part of Yass exercise, part of the Yass method. I'll say it now. If you want to understand how to do the exercises, if you want to get an evaluation on how you can maximize your function while limiting the chance of inciting symptoms, you can contact me directly by email at drmitch@mitchellyass.com, drmitch@mitchellyass.com. This way, I can assist you through a Skype or Zoom session And we could make sure that you're doing what you need to and maximizing your functionality while limiting the chance of creating symptoms. So we already have the gluteus medius as the primary muscle. The next muscle is the gluteus maximus muscle, the butt muscle. This is a key muscle because it's critical for offsetting the natural tendency of your hip flexors and quadricep muscles to be stronger than the gluteus maximus and the hamstring muscles. Because you do everything in front of you, the muscles that are in front of you have a tendency to work harder, whether it's going up and down stairs, walking, kneeling, bending, standing, any of this stuff, right? So the quads have a tendency and the hip flexors have a tendency to be stronger than the gluteus maximus, the butt muscle, and the hamstrings. If these muscles are to shorten, the psoas muscle can actually pull on the lower back, the lumbar spine, and literally pull it towards the front, almost like it's pulling your back into your stomach. This causes excessive arching. The low back muscles can go into spasm. The psoas muscles can go into spasm. That's the primary cause of lower back pain. The quads can actually shorten and pull excessively, again, causing arching of the lower back. So we need to do what is known as hip extension, the opposite of hip flexion. And that is the primary function of the gluteus maximus muscle. So to strengthen the gluteus maximus muscle, by the way, another factor isn't just the arching of the back, but the actual pulling of the body forward at what is known as a forward center of mass, so that your nose or your ear is actually over the front of the foot, not over the ankle. Once that occurs, the forward center of mass, a load is created that has to be picked up by muscles, and that can cause muscles to strain. The ultimate posture that we're looking for is your ear, your shoulder, your hip, your knee, and your ankle to all be in alignment vertically. With a shortened psoas muscle or quad, this can be taken away, and you can end up with this forward center of mass. So that's why we need to strengthen the gluteus maximus muscle. There's no one on the planet who has a stronger gluteus maximus muscle than psoas. It's just reality. So again, we need to understand how to do hip extension correctly, and there's unbelievable amounts of psychotic stuff going on out there in terms of the fitness industry. Then you have the physical therapy people who are just having people do bridging, which is pretty much a worthless exercise. It must be made clear that if you're to strengthen a muscle, you must incorporate progressive resistance, which is the idea of causing a muscle to adapt to a greater and greater resistance, thereby causing the muscle to adapt and make muscle mass, eventually to where its force output is greater than the force requirement of your activities, which allows that muscle to then function without creating symptom. So again, this is at the core. This is 33 years of personal weightlifting, 27 years of treating people with muscular deficits, which account for more than 98% of the causes of pain, through the use of isolated strength training and progressive resistance. This is what the Yass method does. Again, if you're thinking this is something you need and you want to contact me, you can contact me at drmitch@mitchellyass.com. If you want to set up a Zoom or Skype session, I've been doing Zoom and Skype sessions for years. This idea that it's now part of telehealth, they're just figuring out that this could be done. I've been doing this for years, primarily because for years people have been finding out about the Yass method and recognizing that even if you're talking about another country around the world, there's nobody who's capable of addressing these symptoms in an appropriate fashion, which is to say that they're muscular, and understand how to strengthen the muscles appropriately. The Yass method. It's the only real method that can do so. Finally, we have the hamstrings, and the hamstrings work in conjunction with the gluteus maximus as a hip extender. It is the direct muscle that opposes the quadriceps, and again, the quadriceps has a high probability of being stronger. Again, you just have to look at anatomy. Show me anybody on the planet whose hamstring is bigger than their quadriceps. It doesn't exist. The natural propensity is for the quads to be stronger than the hamstrings. We need to strengthen the hamstrings to create balance. So what are you hearing here? What you're hearing here is that there are certain muscles that just naturally are used more in function. That's fine and dandy unless an imbalance develops, or unless certain other muscles aren't being worked to allow that function to occur without straining. The point of these three universal muscles and exercises is to allow natural reactions of muscles to normal function to occur and to allow the muscles to sustain their optimal lengths and optimal force output so you can function without straining. That's what we're talking about here. Do your activity. If you have pain with activity, the answer isn't, oh, don't do the activity. I know that's what the medical establishment proposes, but that's psychotic because life is about living and doing the things you want. The answer isn't that you can't do the activity. The answer is you haven't conditioned yourself to do the activity. That's where the strength training comes in. That's where the Yass method comes in. And so these universal 3 exercises really address the primary muscles that are required for normal function, but aren't being used as optimally as other muscles, and therefore they need to be sustained through isolated strengthening so their force outputs equal the outputs of the other muscles that are really more involved in performing function. So again, we talked about the hamstring. The primary exercise for that is hamstring curl. Again, you have to understand how to do it accurately, and there's generic nonsense out there. You might get a sheet of paper from a therapist telling you to do 15 exercises, 20 exercises. That's not the answer. The answer is to understand which muscles are involved in function, which muscles may need isolated strengthening versus the sustenance of the other muscles because they're so involved in exercise. What is the understanding of general conditioning? How can we make all the muscles eventually get stronger to optimize your ability to perform your activities? This is all at the core of the Yass method. It's what I've been doing for more than 2 decades. So I would suggest again that if this is making sense to you and it sounds like this is the kind of path you need to go on, whether you're having symptoms or if you're smart enough to say, you know what, I really don't want to go through the process of getting symptoms, maybe I should just condition myself, and that's the answer. That's the answer you need to get to. Doing activity doesn't make you better at doing activity, doesn't make you stronger doing activity. Isolated strengthening allows you to do activity more optimally with the least chance of breaking down. So, again, this is your chance to get the answers before you reach the point of having symptoms, because you just don't want to have symptoms, because if you went to the medical system with symptoms, the highest probability is you're going to be misdiagnosed, you're going to go down the path of injections and medications and wacky treatments and surgeries. And the quality of your life will just dissipate to where you start to get real hopeless and real depressed really fast. I've dealt with thousands of people who have reached this point. You don't want to get there. It can get really scary. So please reach out to me. Again, Dr. Mitch at MitchellYass.com. If you like the video and it's making sense to you, which is what I'm always seeking to try to provide, applicable information, wake-up calls to people, so that they can say, oh my God, I don't have to depend on the medical system. This ability to control my life, to do what I want, is within my own hands. That's what this is all about. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the types of videos I'm putting out on my YouTube channel, Dr. Mitchell Yass, please subscribe so you can get notifications when these videos are coming out. I'm putting them out at least once every couple of days. Sometimes I try to do 1 a day. I just hope people are getting the message. I think they are. I am clearly getting a bigger and bigger response, more frequent requests for Skype and Zoom sessions. And so I know I'm winning the war. And this is a war. This is a war between the medical establishment and me. It's quite clear. I'm outside the medical establishment. I'm the only one saying that the MRI should be abolished. I'm the only one saying that 98% of cases of symptoms are muscular in nature. I'm the only one that's saying that the majority of people, vast majority, do not have medical issues creating their symptoms. It's actually a fitness-based issue. Therefore, strength training is the only way to resolve it. So please, if you hear about this, and it's starting to sound like it makes more sense, this is your chance to resolve your symptoms and get back the quality of life you justly deserve. All right? For now, Dr. Mitchell Yass wishing you a pain-free, fully functional life. Bye-bye for now.